Hello, friends. The Netherlands has always been a small country with an outsized influence, often behaving in ways that made the world think they were absolute freaks of nature. The Dutch built an empire out of marshland, taking territory from the sea itself through sheer defiance. For centuries, their identity was shaped by an ongoing war with water. While most civilizations feared floods, the Dutch decided to conquer them by constructing dikes, windmills, canals, and polders, reshaping their landscape with unnatural precision. What nature gave, they refused to accept. Instead, they carved out a nation that shouldn't even exist in the geography it occupies. This obsession with controlling the environment was one of the first signs of their peculiar audacity. In the 17th century, the Dutch Golden Age made them the financial superpower of the world. With a population smaller than many European rivals, they became the richest nation by dominating global trade routes. Their ships crisscrossed the seas, trading spices, silk, tea, porcelain, and slaves, effectively creating the world's first multinational corporation, the Dutch East India Company, VOC. They financed wars, colonized distant lands, and founded cities like New Amsterdam, later New York. What made them bizarrely unique was their obsession with commerce and speculation. They even created the first stock exchange and saw the world's first financial bubble in the tulip craze, where single bulbs were worth fortunes. To outsiders, the idea of bankrupting oneself over flowers was absolute madness, yet it showed their love of risk, experimentation, and wealth in forms others thought irrational. At the same time, the Dutch were masters of contradictions. They were deeply religious Calvinists, yet pioneers of tolerance, allowing freedom of press, art, and science in ways forbidden elsewhere. They harbored philosophers like Descartes and Spinoza, printed banned books, and gave asylum to radical thinkers. In a time when most nations drowned heretics in fire and sword, the Netherlands became a refuge for ideas considered dangerous elsewhere. This odd balance of strict morality alongside wild intellectual freedom gave them a strange dual identity. Their art was another reflection of this unnatural brilliance. Painters like Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Frans Hals captured realism with such intensity that it bordered on obsession. They painted the mundane, bread, cheese, women pouring milk, as if it were divine. While most nations glorified kings and saints, the Dutch glorified housewives, merchants, and landscapes filled with windmills. This upside-down worldview seemed bizarre compared to the grandeur of European courts, but it was exactly what made them different. The Dutch were also freaks in naval warfare. Though tiny compared to France, Spain, or England, they built the most advanced ships and turned the sea into their battlefield. They fought wars not only across Europe, but in Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Admirals like Michel de Ruyter became legendary for sailing into enemy harbors and burning fleets in their own waters. Their courage bordered on insanity, facing empires many times larger and often coming out victorious. Yet beneath all this glory, there was also brutality. Their colonies in Indonesia, South Africa, and the Caribbean became symbols of exploitation, slavery, and domination. They could be ruthless in trade, treating human lives as mere commodities if profit was at stake. This cold calculation of wealth, at all costs, shocked other nations, making them appear as fearless merchants without conscience. Even in decline, the Dutch spirit of innovation never faded. They pioneered banking, insurance, cartography, engineering, and science, leaving a legacy that shaped modern capitalism and global trade. Their constant struggle with the sea gave them engineering skills that still make them the world's leaders in water management. The very fact that their land should be underwater, yet instead holds cities, farms, and millions of people, proves they remain freaks of nature. In modern times, the Dutch never stopped being freaks of nature, just in new, subtler ways. After their golden age faded and the great empires of Britain and France overshadowed them, most small nations would have sunk into irrelevance. But the Netherlands reinvented itself again and again, refusing to behave like a minor power. Instead of clinging desperately to colonial pride, they rebuilt their national identity around pragmatism, trade, and progressiveness. One of the strangest things about the Dutch is their radical tolerance, which often shocks outsiders. In the 20th century, they became the testing ground for ideas most societies considered outrageous. They legalized prostitution, soft drugs, and euthanasia long before the rest of the world could even discuss them openly. They allowed same-sex marriage first in the world in 2001, turning what was once considered taboo into a matter of everyday law. Far from being reckless, these policies were born from the Dutch obsession with control. Just as they once tamed the sea, they sought to tame human instincts by regulating them instead of banning them. This made them look like moral anarchists to conservatives elsewhere. But for the Dutch, it was simply logical. Their engineering feats also remained freakish. With much of the country below sea level, they faced a constant existential threat. In 1953, a devastating flood killed thousands, and instead of retreating, they built the Delta Works, an immense system of dams and barriers often called the eighth wonder of the world. To this day, no other nation has bent nature to its will with such determination. Where other countries surrender coastlines to rising seas, the Dutch invent new land. They even build floating neighborhoods and artificial islands, showing that their war against water never ended, only evolved. Culturally, they retained their dual nature of restraint and eccentricity. The Dutch are famously blunt, almost to the point of rudeness, a trait that unsettles outsiders but reflects their deep preference for honesty over diplomacy. Their cities, especially Amsterdam, became symbols of both old-world beauty and modern freedom, where canals lined with 17th century houses exist alongside coffee shops selling cannabis. This odd mixture of tradition and rebellion defines the Dutch spirit. Even in economics, their old habits persisted. The Netherlands remains one of the world's busiest trading hubs, with Rotterdam boasting one of the largest ports on Earth. Dutch companies like Philips, Heineken, and Shell carry the old merchant spirit into the modern age. Their agriculture is another bizarre marvel. Despite their small size, the Dutch are the second largest exporter of food in the world. Using greenhouses, vertical farming, and high-tech systems, they turned limited land into a global breadbasket, feeding millions with a country that could barely exist without dikes. Politically, they maintain a strange balance. They are a small nation but punch far above their weight in the European Union and on the world stage. Their legal capital, The Hague, houses the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court, making the Dutch global referees of justice, and irony, considering their own bloody colonial past. The Dutch freakishness is also visible in their obsession with cycling. While much of the modern world worships cars, they built cities where bicycles dominate. Amsterdam's bike culture looks absurd to outsiders who see swarms of cyclists moving like schools of fish through streets and canals. But again, it reflects Dutch practicality, efficient, sustainable, and defiantly different. Today, the Netherlands exists as a paradox, a tiny nation that should not have survived, yet thrives as a global leader in innovation, tolerance, and design. They remain freaks of nature not through military conquests, but through their ability to reinvent society itself. From conquering seas to conquering social taboos, from trading spices to exporting high-tech agriculture, the Dutch continue to prove that being strange, bold, and relentlessly practical is the very reason they endure.